I'm Alice Shad. Today we're going to talk about building the variations, solo arrangements for guitar. And what we're going to do is take a standard tune like I just played, Blackberry Rag, and take you through the process of how I come to the arrangement that I have. Before we start that, I do want to tell you a little bit. We are at Dream Guitars, so we always want to talk about the guitars a little bit. And the guitar I'm playing, this is a 2013, it's a Wayne Henderson D28 style. It's a red spruce top, and it's a Brazilian backing, rosewood backing sides. And strings, of course, a D'Addario EJ17s on it. So we'll talk a little bit about the arrangement here. This is a tune that I learned off of Doc Watson's albums years ago. And I actually turned this into a contest arrangement for me at one time. I don't play it much in the contest anymore. And I hardly hear the song played out, but this is a real good example to take a really simple melody and explain to you how I would dress it up a little bit. And what you start with, for me, is the first pass through. I'm a melody player. I like to establish the melody. I'm going to stay pretty close to the melody, very little embellishments. I might do a little hammer on or something like that, and I'll cover some of those here in a minute too. So when I'm not going to waste a lot of time on the first pass explaining that. If you're watching this trying to learn how to do a variation, I'm going to assume that you probably already know how to play a melody, so we're not going to cover that a lot. So we're going to pick it up at the second pass for this that I do. And when you start doing the variations, the most common approach is if you do a second pass on it, is you move up the neck and you do it in the second position. And that's what I do as well most of the time, in this case for sure. And I'll start adding a little bit of elements here and there. And so I'm going to stop right there and explain that to you. When I approach a variation, whether I'm working the arrangement up for a contest tune, or if in a band situation, if you get two passes, you know, everybody takes a pass, you get a first time. The second time, you don't want to do it the same way you did the first. So the second time is when you start changing things up a little bit. And to be able to do that, there's different people I've heard over the years talk about ways to look at it. They talk about dressing it up with accessories. That's one way to look at it. Or using tools out of the toolbox. And that's usually the way I look at it, is using tools out of a toolbox. So when we talk about a toolbox, we're talking about everything that's beyond just playing straight scales. Some of these tools are simple. They can be something as simple as playing a slide, something like... something like that. They can do hammer-ons, pull-offs. Those are some of the more simple ways you start dressing things up. And then beyond that, you start getting into the next elements, which would be like cross-picking. And that's a pretty common one too, and you're going to use it a lot. In this particular song for sure, I do. And then you can even go further and some of the more complex ones are triplets and playing harmony notes to each other and things like that. When I'm doing a contest tune versus a band arrangement, in a band arrangement, it's not about you and the guitar. It's about whatever you play needs to really complement the rest of the band, the rest of the arrangement. You don't want to play, if you're playing in a band that's mostly a traditional style band, you don't want to play a break that's going to be something that would come straight out of a jazz textbook or something like that. You might use a lick or two here and there, change them around a little bit, but for the most part, you still want to stay in line with that band. Whereas in a contest situation, if you're doing your own arrangements, you have a little bit more freedom to mix things up a little bit. And I will do that, but when I do that, I'm still a melody player, and I'm going to stay close to that melody. My recipe, if you will, is the first pass through, I'll play it straight melody pretty much. Second time, I'll move up into a second position. Third time is when I start playing the stuff that's a little further outside the box. If I do a fourth pass on a song, I nearly always bring it right back to the melody and I end it strong on the melody. If I only do 3 passes on it, I generally will split the last one up between some of the wilder stuff that I would put in. and bringing it back to the melody. You still want to finish strong, but in a shorter song, you don't have as much time to really throw the kitchen sink in there at everybody. Now, also in a contest arrangement, what I would tell you is this, and this is how I look at things. You hear people saying they don't like contests, that music's not a sport, and I agree with that. But in a contest situation, a lot of times I look at it as a sport. And specifically for me, I think of ice skating. There's certain elements that you're expected to do, just like with ice skating, but there's also extra points you get if you throw in certain tools or certain moves that nobody else can do or does do, or that you do particularly well, better than somebody else. And that's the way when I'm putting my arrangements together, that's the way I try to approach them is I want to use as many tools out of that toolbox as I can in a contest situation. It gives me a few more points here and there, a little extra credit, as long as you can pull them off. So with that out of the way, now you know how I approach it and why. I'm going to show you a couple of things that I've done in here. The first pass of Blackberry Rag is just the melody. That's all I did was a straight melody, straight off of Doc's version mostly. The exception would be I do one little single line triplet on the second time through. Instead of the standard way. And that's the only thing different I do in the first pass, really. The second pass, I go up the neck. And again, the melody is a... But what I'll do is I'll mix it up and I'll put this passing line in there. Mix it up with some cross picking. Cross picking, and I work my way down the melody. I'm still playing the melody, but I'm playing passing notes in there to connect it. And that, to me, keeps it musical. It keeps it flowing instead of sounding very staccato or pieced together. It actually makes it flow and sound more musical. And that is a big thing for me, personally. So that's really the only thing unusual in my second pass that I do is I go up the neck and I add the passing notes in there with a little bit of cross picking, which is one of those tools we talked about, extra points. And it just makes it sound better to me than playing it straight through up the neck in second position, identically the way I played it the first time. So the second time through, we're doing it this way and adding the notes. When it comes to the B section of that part, I still do a little cross picking in there, but I'll start to stray away from the melody a little bit more and do something like. I'm playing double stops there, which is another element out of the toolbox, just one more tool. Instead of the first time was just straight cross picking. With the second time, I'll vary away from that. Something like that, or and then when I get to the third pass, I want to bring it back home. I still want to throw something in there if I can. And the third pass on this one for me, I'll start in the first position and move up to the second position and tie it together that way, so it's like. And there's a little triplet there. That's just something extra added in to mix it up a little bit. And for the last B section, I come up here and I do a double stop for the A, and for the D, for the G, and back to the C. For the A, I do this. And then for the G, it's back to pretty much the melody with a tag. I ended on a pretty straight tag, and that brings it back home for me. I don't go too wild on that particular song, and most fiddle tunes I don't go too far from the melody. I'm not a lick player just for the sake of playing licks because it's a cool lick. I try to stay around the melody where it's at least recognizable. Appreciate you being here with us today at Dream Guitars. I want to thank Robert Schaefer for giving me backup rhythm today on this. And if you have any further questions or anything you'd like to add for a further lesson or anything like this, feel free to add it in the comments below the video on YouTube. I do read those and get some ideas from those. That's how this one came about, actually. So feel free to write them there, or you can find me on my website, alanshad.com, YouTube, anywhere else. I'm on Facebook as well. And send us your ideas. We'd love to try them out. Thanks for watching.